Welcome all and good afternoon. This is the Arctic team, and I believe you want to know more about the Arctic from the myths. From an overview point of view, the Arctic represents, it's located at the North Pole, and it is estimated that 4 million people live in the Arctic, and out of that, 2 million live within the Russian territory. In terms of structure, the Arctic has its permanent members who are the indigenous, and you find surrounding the Arctic we have 8 member countries, that is Russia, Alaska, as you can see. And we, from the Arctic point of view, you can also see that the countries that are surrounding the Arctic, we have near Arctic members who are represented from the pictorial maps that you have seen, like India and China, among others.
And we would like to quickly check your knowledge about the Arctic a little bit. What do you think, how many Australia can you fit into the territory of the Arctic? 2, 1, or 3? It's 2. You can fit 2 Australias into the Arctic territory.
Thank you very much for those ones who got it true. From a geopolitical perspective, we will look at 3 pillars: the geography and ecological features. The Arctic represents 14.5 million square, whereby it includes the Arctic Ocean and portions of the surrounding land. The key features within the Arctic are the ice-covered seas, frozen tundra, and unique wildlife. If you look at the unique wildlife, it provides a very competitive environment for tourism, just to mention a few. When you look at the competing interests, you find that 13% of the Arctic World Reserve is oil. What lingers in your mind when you hear oil anywhere in the world? There is interest. 30% of it is natural gas. And that's why you find the world superpowers like China and Russia compete to mine these resources for their own interests. Let's take, for example, the issues of international cooperation. You will find that through the Yamal LNG project, which has been done by China, the cooperation between China and Russia, they have created an avenue of mining the LNG through the Yamal project. And this has really helped them to in terms of business economics.
And now to talk a little bit of economics. You will see that the climate change plays a huge role in the economics opportunities. Because of the melting ice, more and more opportunities rise within the region. We will talk about 2, and one of these is going to be natural resources, which we've already mentioned. On this map, you can see the natural resources, mainly the oil and gas regions mapped. These are on the seabed of the oceans of national waters, which means that as the ice is receding, it's easier to access these untapped sources, which poses a huge economical advantage. Another thing that we will look at is the shipping routes. Currently, there are 4 shipping routes we can talk about in the Arctic, but I will highlight 2 of them, which is going to be the Northern Sea Route, which we can hear the most about. It follows the Russian coastline, connecting Europe and Asia together, and this route can shorten the shipping time compared to using the Suez Canal. The other one is the Transpolar Sea Route, which would be the shortest route between the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean, which is a huge advantage once again. But since the Arctic Ocean is mostly covered by ice, and we don't really have the infrastructure to combat that, this route is currently not feasible.
Okay, from a security perspective, we will talk about the strategic zones. And there is always a myth about an imminent Cold War within the Arctic. From our research, we discovered that that is not true actually. Go ahead. Strategically, from a security perspective, you will find that the nations surrounding the Arctic have invested heavily by having icebreaker ships within that region. That is probably the US, the Russians, the Canadians, even the Denmark, Norway, and all those countries, by having the presence of submarines, aircraft, and the rest. The US, Canada, NATO have also enhanced the presence in developing military infrastructure, in the sense that they think there could be a war in the near future. China has not also been left behind. Remember that within the structure of the Arctic, within the Arctic Council, it is an observer within the Council. And despite the fact that it's not near the Arctic, it has penetrated the Arctic through its scientific research. And that has been enhanced through the Yarrow River Station, where they are conducting research through the climate science, oceanography, and atmospheric research. Just to mention a few.
And now let's look at the socioeconomic standpoint within the Arctic. Here I will focus mostly on the indigenous communities. Here you can see 8 pictures, but only 7 represent actual Arctic natives. So I would like you to guess which one of these 8 is not an Arctic native. It's actually the top right one. They are actually Siberian natives, and all of the others are indigenous groups within the Arctic region. There are roughly 4 million people living there, and 10% of them are natives, so 400,000 people are natives. These indigenous groups are sharing their traditional knowledge with modern researchers in hopes of advocating for environmental protection, and also in hopes of a brighter future for the Arctic, because for them the Arctic is not just a land, but it is part of their culture and identity. And with traditional knowledge, we can more understand the Arctic from a modern point of view as well. They are trying to participate in decision-making as well, and the Arctic Council highlights cooperation, but they are still neglecting the needs and wants of the natives. Therefore, they are still pretty underrepresented within the Arctic Council. Another big challenge that they have to face is the climate change. In the Arctic heats 4 times faster than the rest of the world. And because of that, one of the biggest challenges they have to face is the melting permafrost, which causes their buildings to collapse. And also because of the climate change, it's getting harder and harder to keep living in traditional conditions, because they have to immigrate into a capitalistic society. And now a little bit about the tourism. Before the Russian and Ukrainian conflict, the tourism boom has reached its peak. And even though it's a risky destination to go to, a lot of people decide to visit the Arctic because it's very beautiful. And the main areas that they like to visit is Svalbard, Greenland, Faroe Islands, and the Arctic Canada. And even though the tourism helps out the local economies a lot, and they face a lot of growth from the tourism, it puts immense stress on the fragile ecosystem of the Arctic, putting it in even more risk. So, in conclusion, the Arctic is no longer just a frozen wilderness, but its relevance will increase as environmental problems crash with economical growth, and as the media will keep exaggerating security issues and military activities happening in the Arctic, since there is a clear political tension. The Arctic Council is still optimistic that they will be able to keep cooperating in peace in order to secure a bright future for the Arctic region. And thank you for your attention.